Yeah, what we're talking about is this thing called a belief system. What we're working to transform is this belief system. And son of a gun, it is, at least in my experience, my personal process, something that was completely invisible to me. We operate with this belief system, and it's invisible to us. Okay? So, someone tells a joke, okay? And one person is laughing at the joke, and they think it's a beautiful insight and a commentary about life that, in a way that's funny. And they have a joyful experience. Someone else hears the same joke, same time, same comedian, and they're offended. Okay? One event, one person interprets it by whatever they interpret it by to get this experience of laughter and joy and insight. Someone else has an experience of being offended. They feel hurt. They feel violated, whatever it is. The event was the same. What happened that this person has experienced A, this person has experienced B, is the meaning of that joke, the interpretation of that joke, their perspective of how they apply that to the world. Essentially, their interpretation was different. But that interpretation happened how fast? So fast, okay? When we hear a joke, are we aware of how we interpret it? We hear a comment we're offended or hurt by. Are we aware of in that moment that we have a reaction, get frustrated or mad? No. No. They said something, we got frustrated. We didn't know that there was, or they said something and we laughed. We don't notice that something happened. That invisible, silent mechanism is where the belief system is. And it produces in us responses. Huh? Now, if I want to go live in the world and I want to be happy, but I have a belief system that's producing angry, frustration, judgments, victimization, sadness, I don't have much of a chance. And I don't even see the place that it's being created. All I see is, oh, they said something, must have been them. Because the belief system is very much invisible and silent. Until we really start to take time from a conscious point of view and say, what's going on in that moment between they say something and my emotion or the responsive words in my mind? What happens in there? Right? Because that is what's determining my experience of life. That's what's determining my emotional experience of the moment. And if the emotional experience of life or misery is suffering, I probably want to look in that invisible and listen to that silent, or what appears to be invisible and what appears to be silent, process of a belief system that's interpreting life. Okay? And this takes a conscious, willful commitment. Because yes, most of our lives, most of my life, and most people, most of the time, are looking out there and go, oh, you ticked me off, or that's sad, or okay, that's really beautiful, you're great. Okay? They're living in the response. Or they're thinking that you made me feel that way, you did that, that's why I feel this way. Surface level understanding, not noticing, no. Interpretation and meaning that the belief system is applying to experiences is what's changing it all. Okay? So now, as we grow up, and I want to grow up as adults, not just kids, and I talked about it yesterday, we develop consciousness. You know, like it takes, 12, 14 years before our body matures enough to reproduce, right? It's going through a maturing process. That's a dozen years to develop a mature body. And then it continues to develop, okay, into adulthood. Like, okay, now it's like an adult person. That's just physically. Say it's 20 years. And the body continues to grow and mature. Our mind continues to grow and mature. But there's another part of our being that grows and matures over time. That's consciousness. And it really starts to wake up. It varies per person, but say roughly 20, 30 years really. At 30 years, you can say early on the mind is growing faster, but within that the consciousness is growing, and say 30 or 30 to 50 years old, the consciousness wakes up and say, hey, what's going on in my mind? And so you start looking at yourself and what's going on in your mind or in the world from a consciousness point of view. And if you develop that consciousness, you practice being conscious, whether it's meditation or practices that I teach or somebody else teach, you're developing a consciousness faster. You're actually strengthening the muscles of your consciousness and your attention. And you begin to notice all these things going on in the mind that it's doing automatically, that we were programmed with, that's making the interpretation, that's applying meaning of a belief system, that's getting offended or getting angry. And you see that happening automatically. Like, what's that about? That's nonsense. That looks crazy from a consciousness point of view. All those uncontrolled negative thoughts or anxiety. From a consciousness point of view, you're like, wow, that's amazing. But there was very little chance that you could notice it from a point of view of the mind, which is where we develop. And this is why people show up into adulthood into this work, because now their consciousness is going, I got to look at it this way. This is the only way it's going to make sense to me. Okay? So we are developing our consciousness, or you can call it awareness, okay, that's been gestating here in this human form. That takes years. And you can speed it up and actively practice it with exercises and willful commitment. And you can kind of talk about what you realize with some people, and if they're looking at it from their mind of belief systems, they think it's nonsense because they don't know that there's this mechanism operating in the invisible silent realm giving interpretation. Well, unless they're by themselves and they hear all that chatter in their head, they don't realize that's it. They think that's them talking. Okay? But from a consciousness point of view, you realize, oh, that just goes on by itself. Oh, that's coming from the belief system. Generating stuff. So you can mention this topic, what you're looking at, to someone, but if you talk about it from a consciousness point of view, not everybody is going to respond and look at it from their consciousness. They'll look at it from their belief system and not know it. And the belief system never recognizes itself. The belief system doesn't look at what it's doing. It doesn't have awareness and consciousness to self-reflect. You need consciousness as a perspective to self-reflect or reflect on what the mind and belief system are doing. Okay? So not everybody in adulthood will follow you as you talk about this. Okay? Depends what point of view are they in. And as you look at your own belief system, and there's a way to see what is going on there that seems invisible at first, that you didn't notice before, or a way to unravel the meanings and interpretations that were going on silently before you could Go, okay, I can see these layers now. You develop a kind of insight, self-reflection capability to go, oh, okay, I can unravel that. But that's skill and practice. Okay, that doesn't happen because, like, why am I not getting this? Like, you can know it's there, but it is literally like learning to read, like learning to exercise and get fit. You have to develop it as a willful, conscious practice. Like reading music, learning a new language, to see what happens in that instantaneous interpretation. To look in it closely, slow it down and go, well, that wasn't just a response. They made me feel that way. That was my belief system making this interpretation. And then my mind ignoring that happened and just pointing to them, and they say they created that emotion in me. So this is a development of skill. It takes time. So this is what we're doing. Is that clear? And when we're in a point of view of the mind and we're blaming everybody else, then we don't have any issues. It's all them. It's all them. If they just stopped doing that, I'd be fine. If they did this instead of that, I'd be fine. It's like, we're not at all responsible or in control of anything going on with us. Everything happening to us is dependent on the world. It's like, that is a victim paradigm. I have no responsibility for how I feel or how I react. The world has to change, and then I'll be fine. That people can say in an even righteous, moralistic way about how they're hurt, but it is a victim paradigm of powerlessness. Okay? And it's kind of common when you're looking at things from the point of view of the mind or the belief system. And when you're looking at a point of view of consciousness, you look at it and go, okay, that's my creation. My responsibility, my issue, and you know what? I guess I'm the only one that can clean it up because it's all me. It's all my doing. And that, interestingly enough, can suck. Ah, gosh! It's me! I'm creating that anger. I'm creating that resentment. I'm doing that fear. I'm doing that anxiety. Oh. And so there's, and there might be a layer of self-judgment. The mind might kick in and say, you stupid idiot. Why the hell have you been doing this all these years and didn't even notice, right? And there's a layer of that story and a victimization. Now I feel like a stupid idiot. How I should have known this before. No, you shouldn't have known. The mind is making nonsense again. There's no way you could have known this before. Okay? Because your consciousness hasn't developed yet to step outside of it. Okay? But as soon as your consciousness kind of go, oh my God, it's me, the mind wants to kick in and take control again and go, yeah, you stupid idiot. And now you're in a dream of judgment, victimization, comparison to some imagined reality like you could have had realization 5 years ago. Had conscious awakening 5 years ago. Like, no, you couldn't make puberty happen 5 years early. Okay? You couldn't make conscious awakening happen 5 years early. Okay? It's supposed to be that way. Okay, would you say? It's the way it has to be. Okay? Conscious awakening happens when your consciousness gets mature enough. And you can begin to self-reflect. Now the mind will want to take over and do the judgment story and hold you back a little bit. And you have to say, put that, accept it. It's like, no, I wake up when I wake up. I realize when I realize. And step outside that story. It's like, that you should have known this 5 years ago. No, you shouldn't. That's a lie. And you go forward from there. Go forward from there. And that's the game of self-realization, conscious awakening, the path. there's number of kind of common barriers to cross. Because one of the things is you don't relate with your friends and family and coworkers the same way. Okay? When they would do their victim story, oh poor me, and they would want to, go on a rant about their partner in relationship and how he's not doing this or she's not doing that, and you'd chime in and go, oh, that son of a gun, or that son of blah, 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 blah. Right? And you'd all be together in the same story. And that feels like togetherness. Okay? And it looks like support. But you're both being really, you're intertwined in the same judge and victim story. You're not supporting them in their happiness, you're supporting them in their beliefs that perpetuate misery. Okay? And so when you see that and you don't want to feel miserable anymore, and so you don't do that, and they start to say, what's wrong with you? You don't care about me anymore. They fight against your conscious awareness and your authentic compassion, and they want the victim sympathy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've experienced that. I lost a friend over that.
Yeah. Okay. So, and in a way, you love them more, and you care about them more. But to a victim, love and caring look like something else. Love and caring looks like, no, you have to do my story with me. Okay? But you know it's not helping them and it's only making you miserable. It's like, yeah, sometimes you'll feel the loss of a friend. You'll experience the loss of a friend. Sometimes they'll get so tired of you, and it's like, I don't understand you anymore, get out of my life. And sometimes they try over and over to bring you into their story of misery, and you have to put a boundary, and you're like, I love you. And I know you don't understand that, it seems, or in the way that I've changed, and I love you differently, and I'm interacting with you differently. I can't spend time believing your stories the same way because it's just not getting us any happier, any better this way. And so I got to spend less time with you or no time with you for a while. Okay, so you put a boundary there. And you look like you've gone evil. You look strange, weird, crazy to them. You've gone evil. Because in their world, their belief system, each person in their own world, even within their mind, is normal. They are living how they're supposed to be. So you individuate from that victim, judge, suffering paradigm, and you look different, or they don't understand you. Therefore, if they don't understand you, they don't look to themselves and go, well, what am I doing differently, or should I be changing? No, that never occurs to them within the belief system. The belief system in its own interpretation is always fine to itself. It's the world that's the problem. And so they look at you and they go, you're the problem. You're different. You're weird. You change. Like, you should never change. Like, no, you're changing anyways. So they have these justifications. Even you're crazy. Something wrong with you now. Can't talk to you anymore. I hope you get better. Yeah. From their world, right? And so in this journey, we can feel a little alienated. We can feel alone. We don't connect with people the way we used to. And we start to wonder, like, what am I doing? Is this okay? But we have enough awareness, hopefully, to kind of check in and go, I could do their stories, but that's misery. I can't do that. That's the crazy thing. To go live in the mind of those stories and suffer and then say it's somebody else doing it to us. Like, no. And so we go forward, we trust going forward. that this will work itself out. And usually, in that different state of consciousness, you eventually start seeking out new relationships, and you talk to people at a conscious level about this thing called a belief system that you're like unraveling and it's like discovering. Okay? And you have a conscious conversation about what the mind does unconsciously. And that's cool. What the belief system gives us in this invisible operating system is a mental model of the world. Our young years, we oftentimes through action, reaction, just experience, relationship, we've experienced the world and other people. We draw assumptions, we build paradigms of identity, we build paradigms of how the world is and how other people are, and if I do this, they'll treat us this way. If I do that, they'll treat us this way. Okay. If we're 4 years old and we're loud and angry, we're going to get hit. Okay. So now we're afraid to get hit. Now, so we interact in the world in certain ways and not other ways. And we see responses. We operate from those paradigms that we build. Sometimes we operate from a paradigm of like conscious, word-based. We've made statements. Okay. I'm better than them. I'm worse than them. I'm a terrible person. I'm right. They're a terrible person. You know, and then we interact with the narrative we've built about them. Okay, so that belief system can have a lot of language as part of what makes up the structure. The agreements we make about ourselves, what our life would be like if we'd done this instead. Okay? Or I'm this way because mom or dad did this to me. We live in that narrative. Often, though, really was like our commitment to be that way based on what they said. We think it's like, oh, mom or dad told me this or didn't let me do that. But we see like really like, okay, we made a commitment about what that meant. We made a commitment to interpret it that way and be that way. It's like, no, our commitment, our response was what created us and our behavior afterwards. Okay. Anyway, so we operate in that paradigm. And it gives us a mental model of the world. Sometimes accurate, sometimes inaccurate. And if you can imagine, like, the way I see it is, you have this mental model of the world, and it's kind of like the you know, heads-up display in an aircraft. You kind of get this see-through screen projection onto the world. And then there's a real world behind it. Okay? So, we'll look at it from somebody else's point of view. Somebody else is living in their own mental model of the world. Okay? And you're behind it. They don't see the real you. They kind of have this, well, I know you this way. It's like our parents. Our parents would say they know us. Right? But we know they don't know us. They don't know everything about us. They have their version of us. They have their mental model of us. And then there's how we really are. Well, we have our paradigm of what we know of our parents. That's our mental model of them. And then there's how they really are. Okay? We're not necessarily consciously aware of it, or we're certainly not as aware that consciously it's false. It's not the real them. Is this making sense? So everybody has their own belief system, mental model of the world. Now what happens is, most of the time, that's a totally fine way to operate in the world and life goes along okay. But there are certain things that happen when we're operating according to our belief system of who they are. and it misses the mark. So now we think, oh, they're this way and they're going to do this. They don't do it. Now there's a disparity between reality and our assumptions or unmet expectations, belief system of where we thought it would go. That disparity sets up an emotional reaction. This could be surprise, it could be like, oh, that's great. It could be disappointment. You let me down. Okay, you didn't fit what I thought would happen. Okay, reality showed up quite a bit below, and like, that's disappointing. Or reality showed up quite a bit, oh, that's awesome. Okay, why is it awesome? Why is it so much better than we thought? We weren't even aware we had an expectation, probably. Okay? Now, much of our life, we try and get reality to fit our mental model. Mental model of ourselves is like, I think I can really go do this in my life. And we go, we can make reality happen to that. Because we're the most changeable thing in our life. Okay? So we can make ourselves into a doctor, an engineer, a manager, okay, an athlete, run a marathon. We can make that reality happen. Okay? But when it doesn't happen, or it doesn't happen the speed we'd like it to happen, okay? Oh, I want to be through all these emotional issues and clean up this whole belief system. And our belief system is like somewhere saying, yeah, let's finish this. Let's go read this book. That'll get it done. You read the book, but you're still doing the stuff. And what's the frustration. Our belief system assumes, okay, transformation happens like that in a weekend. Reality is, no, you need to develop your consciousness, skills, and dismantle these beliefs. Okay? But our belief system doesn't see that. Our belief system doesn't believe it should have to dismantle its beliefs and actually develop skills. Okay? And so when change doesn't happen like that, there's a reaction of frustration, self-judgment. Okay? Our expectation of how fast our change should happen doesn't fit reality, and what is there? Emotional reaction. That is that silent interpretation system that's falsely predicting what the world's going to be like or what we're going to be like. Okay? And this blinds us from seeing the world. It blinds us from seeing other people the way they are. It blinds us from seeing us the way we really are. In some ways, this is our real beauty. Because all we have is images to look at in our belief system, as opposed to really experiencing ourselves at all those multidimensional levels. And here's where the loop can get really tricky, is when there's that disparity, or like I said earlier, for someone else, we're not now acting according to the way we used to act. We're not acting according to their version of us. We've changed. We're not fitting their belief bubble, their mental model of us. They're having reactions. They don't want to have reactions. They don't want to be uncomfortable. They're like, it's confusing when we're not living according to their mental model, belief system, expectation. They're confused, they're disappointed, they're going to have emotional reactions. You know what? They don't want to have emotional reactions. What's their approach? Well, if they get us to change and go back to be the person that they have modeled in their mind, they'll be more comfortable because they won't have those reactions. If we just would be what their belief system is predicting, that, oh, by the way, they are completely unaware of, they won't have as much emotional reaction, they'll be more comfortable. Do you see where they might want to get us to change back? Because they're having reactions to us? Do you see maybe how when other people change, we might want them to change back because they don't fit what we're used to? And so some people say, oh, well, we want to just go with what's familiar. No, we want to go with, more often, like what our belief system has formulated, because changes to our belief system cause it to go, huh? Things are not the way I thought. I'm not the way I thought. They're not the way I thought. Well, like, that belief system goes, It's a ripple in the matrix. It's like, gives a little shake. That feels uncomfortable to find out that something you believe is not true. So we will, at times, other people will at times try to, that emotional reaction to us is kind of a punishment. Hey, get back to being who I expect you to be. My belief system expects you to be. Sometimes we will react to people when they're different, when what we could do instead is a conscious perspective go, wow, why is my belief system having such a response like to this? I'm uncomfortable with them not fitting my expectations. Which is more accurately, my belief system is having a reaction to reality. My belief system is having a reaction to reality, which means my belief system is giving something false. It's not in alignment with reality. If your belief system is in alignment with reality, you don't notice it. Because it's giving you a good matched image. It matches expectation. Like, okay, that's predictable. Right? If you're here kind of in this part of the world, the power stays on regularly, and if the power goes off, you're like, what's going on? If you're in another part of the world, the power goes off regularly, and you went, yeah, the power just goes off regularly. You don't have any response about it. It's just the way it is. Okay? You know that's normal. So anyways, so this is where the belief system tries to push us and other people back to normal, or what we would call belief system model of it. Not that it's normal, not that it's healthy, not that it's really going to help make you happy, but what is emotionally comfortable to the belief system so it doesn't have to change. Okay? If you want your personal freedom and you want to awaken a consciousness, you have to dissolve this belief system. So when you notice an emotional reaction, you can go, cool. Instead of like, oh, I had an emotional reaction, you go, cool. My belief system is exposed now. There's a chance to see that it's got something false going on. When you become more consciously aware and have an emotional reaction, it's like, okay, that's not a big deal. They actually become fun. You're like, oh, now I can find something false that my belief system is doing. Yeah, the snow is melted. You can see what's there now. Okay? So it's a totally different attitude about emotional reactions. From a consciousness point of view, you're like, cool. This is a beneficial thing, having an emotional reaction. But from the point of view of the mind, it's a problem, and oh, by the way, they caused it. All right. So let me give you the case where this world we live in dictates decisions that are detrimental to our process. It's like just following along with a belief system, we'll try to go do what's comfortable to the belief system. say you live in a belief, we'll take a belief system, kind of an extreme case that it's easier to see this way. A woman who's really low self-esteem, feels worthlessness, has a belief paradigm, she doesn't deserve to be happy or treated well, and she's in an abusive relationship. Okay. She has a really low self-image, doesn't deserve to be happy, and punishment is like, yeah, she's been punished in her life, that's who she is, she's always doing things wrong, messing things up. Punishment, being mistreated, fits her belief system of herself. So her mental model of herself and that image is she deserves to be hit because she's doing things wrong. Her partner, who's an abusive partner, says she deserves to be hit, you deserve that. That fits with her story about herself. There's a congruency. The inside belief system and the outside reality match up. And so this is familiar and congruent. And so while the emotional experience may be painful, it's not confusing. In a way, it makes sense to that mind. And why is she still there? Oh, you know, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that, it's my fault. He's that way. I did this to tick him off, and it's totally understandable he got angry about that. There's nothing to change. There's nothing wrong with this situation. Congruency between, we'll call the inside dream and the outside dream. Internal belief system and reality. Take that woman and you put her in a relationship with a man who just loves her unconditionally, is kind and sweet. Okay? She's still the same person, but he treats her like this. All this love and acceptance, adores her. She's going to be confused. He doesn't really understand me. He doesn't know what I'm like. If he really knew me, he wouldn't want to be with me. You know, this won't last. It's like, who is he really? He must be crazy. You know, he loves me this much. It doesn't make any sense. I don't deserve this. That's her narrative response.
And she's likely to keep poking him to try to get the response.
Okay, what does she do? What does she do? She's uncomfortable. Her belief system's uncomfortable, like this doesn't make any sense. She wants congruency. She wants somebody that's going to mistreat her according to what her belief system says she deserves. She's going to try and get that guy to treat her poorly. She will sabotage a relationship. She'll give a little jab. She'll forget to do things. She'll break promises. She'll cheat on him. Unconsciously, all this love and affection is uncomfortable because her world, mental model of the world, is shaking. This doesn't fit. It's so incongruent. It's uncomfortable. And getting back to comfortable means getting back to what the belief system says is congruent. And what congruent is abused. It's, we'll call it uncomfortable. It's painful. But it doesn't have this disparity. Okay, it's congruent. Not comfortable, but congruent. Okay? So yeah, she will poke at him. She will jab. She'll get angry. She'll do things to try and create emotional reactions to sabotage that relationship, either so that he becomes mad at her, or he goes, okay, I can't connect with you. Or she'll run away. She'll go leave and say, you know, you don't make any sense to me anymore. Can't do this anymore. And the guy will wonder, what's going on? I like be confused. Okay? Or vice versa with the man who's really loved by a woman. So that part of that, understand what part of that belief system is doing is trying to create not what's comfortable, as we often use the term, is try to create congruency so we don't feel confused. Okay? And the belief system can go, Situation normal. Situation congruent. Nothing to figure out now. Beliefs can all stay intact. Okay? So in this way, we talk about people creating their own reality. People often creating the world or making the world fit their non-reality, their belief system model. Okay? And sometimes what you do is you look at what's going on in the world, in your life, and you go, what's in my belief system that I would be doing this? And sometimes you change your belief system and you go, this thing in the external world, this kind of person, this friend that does drama or what have you, this relationship or this job, or that's got to go now. That's no longer congruent. I want a life that reflects how I feel about myself in this way, which is with more love and respect and acceptance. And so we decide we need to lose some relationships that are abusive. Okay? And this is about making as you change your inside belief system, then you have to change your outside world to be congruent with that. And sometimes you realize, I don't know what the belief is, but this thing in the world that I'm doing is not working for me. I'm just going to change it and let my belief system catch up and go through its uncomfortable shift that it has to go through. And when the confusion and the, did I do the right thing comes along, you're like, I had to do that. You let your belief system change to match what you want the external world to be. It's not necessarily one or the other. You can do it either way. But there will be a seeking of congruency. Not comfortable, but congruency. Okay? That is then has less emotional reaction to it. And the most comfortable way to be in the world is to have a belief system or just to see reality as it is. Then you don't have this invisible layer mental model reacting when things don't fit, because you just see it as it is and it all fits. It is the way it is. Okay? And emotions are easy. Okay? Because you don't have this separation layer. Okay? Is that a little clearer how our mental model and someone else's mental model react, and how our mental model of belief system fits with the world? How we try to make it fit or not fit?